How's it going, everybody? And welcome back to the Real FI Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick McGrath, with my dapper co-host, James Rippion. How's it going today, James? Look at that smile.
It's going well, man. I feel like you say that every day I don't wear a hat. So I just got to show this head of lettuce off a little bit more. I think it looks good. So I love the compliments. Keep them going, Patrick. Appreciate it. So I'm excited about today's episode. We've got our buddy Scott Hardiman here. Scott is an expert with mindset and coaching. So I know we're going to have a really good episode here today. And we're going to get a lot of insightful tips on how to live a productive, fulfilling life, I'm sure. So without further ado, Scott, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit and tell us some of the things that you've got going on in your life right
now. Amazing. Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. All the way from the UK, 10 p.m. I should be in bed.
The accent is going to be really refreshing for our listeners, I'm sure.
Yeah, we're from where I live is a little bit further south. If you're up north, you probably wouldn't be able to understand me. So you're lucky in that way. But yeah, so I'm Scott Hardiman. I'm a husband. I'm a dad. I always find this question really interesting. It's like, tell me what you do, or tell me who you are, and everyone kind of leans into what they do, rather than who they are. So it's always a tough one to answer, because I feel like I want to tell you more about who I am: kind, caring, compassionate, loving. Bit silly, all of those things, but it makes sense to say what I do. So I run a business called Further Coaching. It helps men overcome their challenges, their barriers, and really achieve the things that they want to achieve. Helping them overcome their confidence challenges mainly, and really build that mindset, which is just setting them on a path to potentially financial independence, which is really key for them, but also having connection, relationships that really give them that kick and enjoy and fulfilling life. I think you said that before we got started. So there's one thing I've run it with my wife. How long we've been married? Nearly 10 years, and we've been together 15. So that's another avenue we might go down with business. It's exciting. Relationships. It takes a lot to be in a relationship for 15 years. So yeah, it's good. But main thing that I do is run an amazing coaching business, and we're really happy with the way things are going.
Before you started your coaching business, which we'll definitely get into, and we'll explore all the things that you're doing in there, what were you kind of doing before then? Because when did you start the business, and what was going on before you started it?
Yes, that's a really great question, and one a lot of people probably wouldn't expect. But so I started this point because it really led me into doing what I'm doing now. I feel it gave me the skills and everything I need to be able to do my job really well, and have a superpower of kind of listening, but hearing as well. Because I think a lot of coaches and a lot of people they'll listen, but I think the gold is when you can hear actually what people are trying to say. So I was around 19, 20, and I was working as an estate agent. Wasn't very good at it. I don't know why I went to do it, because I was seriously low in confidence. I was very anxious, very shy. I used to go into people's homes and say, "This is the lounge," and I'd be sweating and I'd be go red. I'd stumble over my words. It was never a good time. And then one of my best friends at the time, his brother was working in an industry in the local town or city to me. And he said, "I think you'd be really good at the job. Come for an interview. There's a job going where I am." And that job was a funeral director in the UK. So I thought, well, I'm not enjoying where I am. I'll see what it's like, and I went into that world, the funeral world, and I was there doing that role for 9 years, nearly 9 years. I worked my way up from an operative, which is someone that looks after the cars and things like that, to funeral director, into general manager. And the reason I started at that point is because, as you can imagine, in the funeral world, it's challenging. You learn a lot about people, people that are very, very clearly unhappy, but some people maybe not so unhappy. And you have to kind of understand people and like I say, read between the lines of what they're saying. So that set me up really nicely for what I'm doing, which obviously I didn't realize I would be doing what I'm doing now, but it gave me a lot of skills around emotional intelligence, and it led me to what I'm doing. So that's where I start. I also qualified as a personal trainer alongside that, which was my kind of side hustle to start with. And I just found a lot of what I was doing was helping guys outside of the gym with their mindset, not just their physique. They come in and go, "Hey, I want a really good physique. I want to look great." But it was never really that. So I ended up kind of just diving into this world of personal development, overcoming my own anxiety struggles, and just found a real passion for it, and this is where I am.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that you're a trainer for the physical aspect of people's lives, because that's the first thing that, I think people think about when they think about coaching, mentoring. They think maybe a physical trainer for working out and stuff, but the mental aspect of it, I think, is probably 90% of the battle to get there to whatever you're trying to achieve, especially if you're trying to put yourself in a better physical position as well. So I think it's interesting how you went from the physical training aspect and transitioned over to the mental side of things.
Yeah, it's a really, I mean, it's fascinating because you can go into the gym and do a fantastic amount of work on whatever exercise you're doing, but you can go out of the gym and you can feel not good in yourself at all, and you can overeat. You can do things that you wouldn't normally do, go and have plenty of alcohol and ruin the progress. But that's not because of a lack of want for your body, but it's because of the emotional things that you're not dealing with, and you're acting in a certain way. The things that we do are a symptom of something that's deeper. And if you just go to the gym and just work on your body, you'll kind of mask over that. You'll feel good in the way that you look. You might look in the mirror and go, "Oh yeah, I look good," but up here, this going to show your life is going to present you with problems to show you where you're not quite free. So I just found that fascinating, and with the mind is that you ultimately have a supercomputer, and no one gave us the manual for it. So it's important that people do invest in themselves, and I just love that world. I'm fascinated with it.
I think it's really interesting, all of the aspects that you're talking about, the combination of mental, physical, but one of the key things that you just said right there was investing in yourself. And a lot of people, I think, really focus on that investment of time in the gym, that investment of real estate, finance, education, but not people more and more are getting into that mental health aspect. And that's kind of what, we're talking about, that mental fitness, because I think when you start to get to a certain level of success that a lot of people are going for, you start to hit this plateau or this kind of like imposter syndrome. Am I worth it? Do I deserve to be successful? Do I deserve to be in shape? A lot of these different things that are going on, I think. And I think that's part of the mental blockage that I would assume a lot of people kind of go through in their journey to, financial freedom, to, that next best personal self. I know that I have struggled with that sometimes, and I'm sure there's a lot of other people out there and of our listeners that have struggled with that sometimes. So break down for us a little bit what that coaching kind of entails. Like how does that go, and what kind of people are coming in and looking and actively utilizing your services?
Yeah, it's a really, really great question, and it genuinely does vary. I have some guys reach out to me, and they're rock bottom with their confidence, very, very anxious. And I have some guys come to me and say, "Hey, I procrastinate. This is becoming a problem for me." But it's never procrastination, as an example. Why does someone procrastinate? Often because they're fearing failure. Now, why are they fearing failure? Because they don't want to get something to go wrong. Why don't they want something to go wrong? Because it won't feel nice. Why won't it feel nice? Because they want to protect themselves. Why do they want to protect themselves? Because they don't feel safe, right? So you can see that, but the symptom itself is, I procrastinate. And ultimately, our results are a direct result of our actions, right? And a lot of people will do work there. I procrastinate. There's a timer. I'll do that to give me a different result. But they'll keep coming. It might work for a few weeks. It might work for a little bit longer, but it will keep showing up in some way. So then you go a bit deeper and you go thoughts and feelings. Okay, well, how do I think? How do I feel? Which then creates my actions and then my results. So I do a lot of work there. So, if I can manage my thoughts, I can start to control my emotions, which can then give me different action steps and therefore a different result. But then even deeper are these kind of, I call them hidden drivers, which is what drives everything else. And if someone might say, I'm not going to do that because I feel uncomfortable. And then I say, okay, so ultimately we figure out by listening and then hearing in between the lines, it's because they don't feel safe, which has been created from past experiences. They may have, been in a relationship that they didn't feel safe in. Their parents may have been at odds for a lot when they were children, and then they have this thing of, well, I don't feel safe, but it's hidden. They don't know it. They just think and feel a certain way, take action steps, and then get a result. So for me, it's very much about uncovering, doing work on the thoughts and feelings, the actions and the results naturally, because that can get some quick results. But understanding, what are those hidden drivers, because that's where the real key is.
So it sounds like you're bringing forth, some of those subconscious elements that people either have consciously or subconsciously just, grounded down and, buried to kind of get on with life. But, when people go through this process of unveiling them and bringing them to the surface, is it generally a difficult thing for them to do? Or, is it pretty easy for people to come to terms with some of the realizations that they're making throughout this process?
Yeah, it varies. I would say that a lot of people, when we uncover their hidden drivers, and often there's, I'm not safe, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm alone, all of these things that crop up. If someone says, like I say, I procrastinate, and I say, is it potentially because you don't feel safe? They're like, oh, and it creates those moments of, and that has the ability to shift someone's perspective very, very quickly. But also that doesn't mean that everything changes forever. There's still a lot of work to do, and there's a lot of commitment you have to make to yourself, because ultimately that's the old version of you, and you've been driven from that. And when you have that insight of, oh, well, that isn't what I believe, because it's not true that I'm not safe, in this present moment right here, right now, if I had this driver of I'm not safe, I'd be sat here thinking, well, is that true? No, I feel pretty good. So it's not true that that's the case. So it's very much about, there's some space that I've created. Now what can I do? And then it takes that work. And then you have to really put that effort in, continuously challenge those thoughts so that you can create, like I say, those different emotions that serve you, and then you move forward in a different way. But if you're coming from a place of, I keep saying I'm not safe, but I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, then you're not going to get the results that you want. And I remember this quote, and a lot of people's, they'll go in one of two directions. So they'll have the same kind of driver, and they'll turn to drink and drugs and end up on the streets. You have someone else that will have the same driver, but they will succeed, they'll push, they'll strive, they'll do everything they can to feel good enough, or to feel worthy, or to feel safe, but then they'll get to where they want to get to, and they're still not fulfilled. And that's because, and this is where I love this, they're the best version of their limited self. And that's really quite profound, because that's what a lot of people, you've probably spoken to a lot of people, yeah, I've got everything I need, but I'm not content. Why? Because they don't fully understand themselves. If that makes sense.
I think that makes 1,000% sense. And, I also, I feel like you're speaking to me a little bit, like personally, is because, as someone who has reached some sort of financial, independence, not necessarily financial freedom yet, you still have those underlying things where you need to look back and know what you are working for, like what is the level of success that is still going to make you feel as good, and start really appreciating all those other underlining things, about having that, like when you said feeling safe. Is it feeling safe like protection safe, or is it feeling safe like financially safe? Like if something big happens in my life, am I going to be able to take care of that type of, safe? If that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. Cool.
Okay, good. Well, like what would you say would be like the top 2 or 3, main things that you see people coming with? Like uh things that men need to work on specifically, like those top 2 or 3 like key things that you see most men kind of struggling and dealing with.
Yeah, it's quite an easy one. So low confidence, regardless of where they're at in their life. I've had someone that is a managing director and looks after 200 plus employees, but he's low in confidence. And you think, well, how's that the case? But it's true. So confidence, most definitely, and not being, no matter, I don't think it doesn't matter who you are, you're always looking for that extra bit of confidence in some way. It could be you're trying something different and your confidence takes a hit, or you're not quite there yet. So confidence, yes, definitely. Procrastination, for sure, and not knowing what they want. And they're kind of the three main things. I don't know what I want now. I procrastinate, and I'm low in confidence. They're the three main challenges that I would say that they come to me with.
And having you list those three things out, I'm applying them to myself, and I'm trying to be honest with myself. Those are probably my three biggest problems that I have with doing a lot of the things that I try to do. Because I've recently gone into a new profession, and that comes with learning new skills and becoming comfortable doing things that you were before uncomfortable doing. So that's the whole confidence issue. And then, after that, I feel like the confidence thing can lead to the procrastination. And then it just kind of compounds on itself, especially in a professional environment when you don't feel sure of what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. It's easy to put it off until another day, to leave that task until another time. And then it just compounds on itself. And then eventually, it can feel like you're either on a treadmill or digging yourself a hole to some extent. So fully resonate with that.
Yeah, it is. It is a very common one, but ultimately it's understanding that confidence, for me anyway, personally, how I see it, is that confidence it's something that we can develop, because you may feel really confident in doing a podcast show, but actually standing in front of 20 people, delivering something, a speech or something along those lines, that's not something you're very confident in. But confidence comes from, I believe, there's a lot of factors involved, but one thing we could say is that its confidence comes from being competent, right? So if we're competent in something, then we tend to feel more confident. It's kind of a natural progression. And if you work your way, if we'll start from the beginning, that comes from taking action, right? When you take action, you learn and you grow. You then take more action, you learn and you grow, and then you start to become more competent, and then the confidence comes. And a lot of the time I get my clients, so for example, in meetings, if they're not very confident in it, they don't feel very good, what I'll get them to do is I'll get them to visualize themselves in that moment, absolutely nailing it. Like they are confident. I get them to vividly imagine it. And what can they see, whatever that challenge is they're going through with regards to confidence, what can they see, what can they hear, and how does it feel to be that? Shoulders back, head up, nice firm handshake wherever they are, speaking clearly, no stuttering, just feeling really, really strong and powerful and confident in those moments. And then what happens is because you may have heard this before, because the brain doesn't know the difference between something that's happening and something that's vividly imagined, you're giving yourself the best opportunity and the best chance to, so when you go in there, your brain goes, cool, been here, done that. This feels good. Let's do it. But what a lot of people do when they're low in confidence in a specific area, they will create this story in their mind. They will visualize and they will go let that story and that visualization run about all the things that will go wrong rather than all the things that will go right.
So
just making, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what are some strategies that you can teach people to deal with, that negative self-talk, because I think that's really what debilitates people's ability to have confidence. But I'm sure you address this every day. So what are some strategies that people can kind of utilize to deal with that?
Yeah, great. Well, fundamentally is recognizing that 99.9999% of the thoughts that we have that are limiting are just a load of rubbish. They're not true. And the first thing that I will do with my clients is have them just raise their awareness from here to here. It's taking it up a notch. A lot of people and a lot of guys will say that they're aware, and I'll say, well, give me an example of a limiting thought that you're having, and it'll take them ages to find one. And I'll say that's because you're not aware. And there's different levels of awareness. So ideally, what we want to do, we want to be aware enough to catch our thoughts so that we can challenge them. And it might be as simple as walking past a coffee shop, looking in the coffee shop, having a thought of, I'm not going to go in there because last time I went into a coffee shop, I tripped and I fell and everyone laughed at me. But if you're not consciously aware of that thought, you're just going to look in the coffee shop, look away and keep walking, right? But if you are aware enough to catch that thought, then you can go, oh, I'm going to challenge that. Is that helpful for me? Do I want to think this? And is it true? And you give yourself a good few questions to ask yourself, which is going to challenge that thought. Is it true? Well, I don't know. I could walk in, I could get a fantastic coffee. I could meet someone that is offering opportunities for a job that I really want. So I'm going to go in anyway. And then you give yourself that space to challenge the thought and then experience life in a different way. So the first thing I get them to do is just raise their awareness, because if you notice, you can make changes, but if you don't, you can't. So that's the real key here, is catch those thoughts, then you can do something about it.
I think that's, excuse me. I think you hit the nail on the head with that one. And that one is key, because I find when I'm going through like a stressful situation, particularly in my business, I always try to find myself visualizing how I'm going to win. I continue to play through my head on all the strategies on why I'm going to win, how I'm going to win. So once I get into that situation, I've already prepared myself winning. I've already thought all of the different things that they could say and prepared all of my responses. So when they come up, I'm confident and I'm consistent in my responses. I've already played them through. I'm not stuttering. I've built that confidence. And a lot of that, I think, has to do towards planning. So in the realm of, financial independence, in real estate, in building wealth, your competence leads to your confidence, and getting that confidence typically takes planning, and takes action, like you said. So you're deciding, committing, and then taking that action. So, and that's also coming down to, just like you said, your thoughts. And it's just committing yourself to trying to think more positively about your environment, situation, and where you're headed mentally, is what it sounds like is the first step into setting yourself up for, that higher confidence, which is going to lead to those better results.
Yeah, for sure. And I love that. Yeah, you couldn't put it better myself. It's great. And but one thing I would add is that you can plan, you can read, you can do courses and invest in yourself and have all this knowledge, and it's fantastic. But knowledge is potential power, right? It's not actually power until you use it. So, for example, for me, I've looked into property and buying a property and renting out, buy to let, rent to service accommodation, and I've got that knowledge in my head, but I haven't implemented it yet. So there's no power in that yet. I just have that knowledge, which is great. It's great, but it's potential power. It's the same with anything that we do. You can visualize yourself, standing up in front of people doing brilliantly well, feeling confident in those things. But unless you actually go and do it, it's just information that you have in your mind. So it's for me, it's very powerful. I'm all about action and taking action as often as you can, and putting yourself in those uncomfortable places, because it's a really cheesy quote. I can't remember ever hearing anyone else say it, so I kind of claim it myself. If it's someone else's, sorry about that. But if it's comfortable and scary, that's where I go, because that's where I grow. So it's really important for me. I kind of lean into that. But that comes from taking action, like I say.
So, Scott, we've kind of talked about where people can go to rehearse, prepare, and become confident, to become competent and become confident in things that they do. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the opposite side of that. Whereas it's like cleaning your mind out, meditation, emptiness of thought. Do you have any thoughts on meditation and how that might have benefits for people as well? Do you work with meditation at all?
Yeah, sure. So I wouldn't say I specifically meditate. I do more visualizations in the morning. It's like a non-negotiable for me. I visualize my future. So I'm sure, perhaps you two do as well. And I imagine loads of listeners do. It's about visualizing my future and doing it very vividly, looking at my bank balance and seeing the number that I'm looking for, and so on and so on. But one thing I feel like there's this, it is very much, hey, meditate, be present, do whatever you can to be present in the moment, be present. Everyone says it, right? And I totally agree. But a lot of people will try it. They'll do it for a week, and then they'll go, oh, I can't be. It's difficult for me. And that's because I believe we live in a world of distraction. And it's, a lot of things that we are distracted by are fantastic. Social media, you might watch a bit of Netflix, WhatsApp, all of this stuff that are kind of you're being distracted by. But if we live in a world of distraction, how can we be fully present? So I think it's, instead of saying to people, hey, be present, I believe it should be, hey, instead of focusing on distraction, focus on concentration. Like, practice concentration, because then when you can learn to concentrate and focus, being present's a lot easier. And that's ultimately what I ask my clients to do. I go, okay, at the moment you're practicing distraction. How about we practice concentration a bit? So when you're, as simple as this, is when you're brushing your teeth, just brush your teeth. Like, focus on brushing your teeth. When you're eating food, just, even if it's just a couple of minutes, I like to every now and then put my phone and I'll watch a YouTube video while I'm having dinner if I've been on the go. But just for the first maybe minute, I'll just eat my dinner. I will be focused on that, and I will practice concentration, because then it filters into everything. And then becoming present and then taking on meditation becomes a lot easier. But a big fan of meditation as well. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you say that, because I know a lot of people that claim to be very talented multitaskers. And, from brushing the teeth to doing a whole bunch of things in the morning for your routine, it's interesting to hear you have that perspective of just slowing down and doing that one small, simple task intentionally, because that does carry over to, your habits with work and your professional career as well, I'm sure. But, I think it's interesting, just in my conversations with other people, how they claim to be great multitaskers. And I know that's, BS. It's great to be able to focus and, put all of your attention and efforts into one thing at a time.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think they're probably just master of distraction. They can just move from one distraction to the next very, very quickly, which, if it works for them, great. But for me, it's just, I'm not saying that I can do this fantastically well, but I do just make an effort to, because like I say, we just practice distraction every day, because it's just the way that life is. We can't always win against that, because we're fighting against things that are just very, very advanced. But what we can do is just make those small changes to our ability to be able to concentrate and focus more, and that will just have a ripple effect into our lives, and very naturally it'll be more organic if we can just stop and concentrate on one thing, 5, 10, 15 times a day for short spaces of time. It all adds up, and all of a sudden you'll just maybe just sit there one time watching dog walkers in the park and be like, oh, that was quite nice.
That's really interesting, because I could even find myself while you were talking about concentration, and James was talking to me, trying to concentrate on the conversation, but thinking about all of the other times when I'm like, you know what? I think when James and I do this podcast, it's probably the only time during my day or even my week that I'm not even checking like my phone or doing something else, like checking an email or doing something while I'm doing something else. Like, just being completely honest, like it's probably the 1 hour whenever we do this, or hour and 15 minutes, where I'm solely focused on the conversation at hand, and not something else isn't kind of going on. So being present, or making sure to focus or concentrate on things, I think is extremely important. And I know that I need to do that more. And I do find that just focusing on that singular task, I find that I do it a lot better. Like you were just talking about, James, about people who say they can multitask. Like, I know if I'm just like, all right, I'm going to focus on this one thing, complete that, then jump to the next thing, I accomplish way more than if I'm like trying to run around and do all those things. But with that being said, like, I really do feel that is a big aspect, whether you're calling it presence, whether you're calling it concentration, whether it's just soaking in the day. That really is a huge factor. So you've kind of given us the three main things that you see men, because you strictly work with men, that they need to focus on more or work on more. So let's kind of shift a little bit into more about your business. Like, how long have you been a coach? What does that look like? How many clients do you have? Because I'm sure there's some people out there that are listening that want to start, their own business, take on to that next role, and kind of break that down for us a little bit on what that business looks like.
Yeah, and so I've been running the business for it's about 4 years, going on 5. I would know, apart from doing personal training on the side, and realizing that was the way I wanted to go, self-employed world. It's been a real eye opener starting a business. It was you get kicked a lot. You have to really have that resilience and that belief that you know where you're going. But I've been so about 4 years, nearly going on to 5 soon. And client wise, it does vary, but I aim to take on between 4 and 5 clients per month, ideally. And at the moment, I have about 12 clients, which is so last month was a very busy month for us. It's not so busy this month. So we are. I couldn't last month. I couldn't have taken any more clients on. That was enough for me because I'm a dad. I'm a family man, and one thing that I'm really trying to look after at the moment is my energy. And being on as you can imagine, when you come off a podcast, it can be quite intensive. You're thinking of questions you ask. It's the same with coaching, so you really have to be in it for your clients. So I'm trying to protect my energy. So what we're doing is, within the business, we're trying to pivot slightly and find a way to have more of an impact, because I'm very passionate about having impact for men. Especially, I think it's just men in general do struggle to say, hey, there's things going on in my life, I need to talk about it, or are there things that I want to work on? And I get that in the UK as well. It's not in America, I feel like coaching, they wear it as a badge of honor. In the UK, it's don't tell anyone I've got coaching or therapy. I think it's slightly different in the US. So so I'm going away from that. But 4 years, take on about 4 or 5 clients per month. And now we're looking at building more of a community and a membership to have more of an impact, because we're doing amazing things.
I think that's awesome, with the membership and building the business and everything. But I do want to touch base on that. Why do you think that is that you feel that in America it is more accepted than in the UK on the coaching, on the therapy, on the self-help type of thing?
Yeah, with being British, we play a lot of stuff down. It's like, oh yeah, but it's okay. We don't shout. It's not within us. It took me a lot to be able to speak as I do now. It was, I'm quite shy. I don't talk about the way that I feel. Yeah, I'm all right. My go-to when I was highly anxious was, if someone would say to me, "How you doing?" I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm fine. You?" Straight away, I'd reflect it back on them. I didn't want to talk about the way I felt. So it's changing in the UK, but I feel like the US, it's more, I don't know, you guys could probably tell me, is there's a lot of there of confidence. Talking about the way you feel is something that you have maybe been brought up with. I don't know, but I can see the difference, because I have US clients as well, and it's just remarkably different.
That's interesting. I'm going to ask the maybe obvious, maybe not so obvious question here. Why did you decide to just work with men? What did you see with men in particular that made you want to kind of focus your business on that? Was it, principally a marketing kind of thing, or did you kind of identify something that was specific with men that you wanted to try to help solve and help other men resolve within themselves?
Yeah, I think it's mainly started when, I've been brought up with women. I've got 3 younger sisters, and my mum. My life was women, and I would say that I had a lot of love around me, a lot of challenges, and a lot of hurt, and a lot of trauma. But at the same time, I had a lot of love. But even then, I didn't talk about the way that I felt, and I had 5 years of crippling anxiety. I didn't know where to turn, what to do, who to talk to. I had no idea whatsoever. And I thought, well, this is something that I managed to take myself out of. And the more that I opened my eyes to what was going on, I saw a lot of men that were struggling. And these are men that maybe are not doing so well for themselves, and also very, very successful men. And I thought, well, it's like having the cure for something, in a sense, and keeping it to yourself. It's like not fair. So I thought, well, how can I help other men? And I'm just very passionate. I saw a video, it kind of chewed me up inside a little bit on TikTok today, of a young daughter just crying because her dad wasn't around anymore, and that was because he couldn't take life anymore. And because I've got a daughter, she's 5, and it really, really, really affected me. And it, again, although it wasn't a nice thing to see, it kind of really ignited that passion that I've had in me for ages to help men overcome their struggles, and that it doesn't have to be that way. But for me, I was in that place. I didn't know where to turn, and I wanted to have an impact so that other guys don't have to experience that.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. I mean, I think it's interesting to hear your aspect of it, because I do think it, you know, as a man, you know, talking about your feelings, I think is more open nowadays, you know, but I still think there's a lot of people that still feel that it's not, you know, or that they don't feel that they can open up maybe to their spouse or to women for how you might be perceived as being weak, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and I'm sure a lot of guys have probably told you that. So I think they might feel the ability to be more open with you because you are, you know, another male. You know, it's two guys talking about their feelings, you know what I mean? And having someone to open up. So I think that's really fantastic that you created the space off of a need that you saw in the way that you felt, and you were like, hey, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to help other people, you know, because I think that's, again, the whole purpose of what James and I set out to do when we started this podcast, was to help other people, you know, educate, motivate, and inspire, you know, whatever that really has kind of, it's kind of shifting and going into its own direction. And we're having conversations with you and anything that we feel like we've noticed that can benefit the listeners. And it's just really interesting, because I never thought that I'd be having a conversation like this, you know what I mean, talking with you about these types of things. And you've got me thinking all in my head right now, on different ways that I could probably use or use someone to talk to burn through some things, just to help me out. So it is really interesting that you were able to create a business off of this, you know, about helping people mentally get better. And like you said, it comes from both ends of the spectrum. People that are, you know, hitting rock bottom, and really successful people that are doing great. So I think that's really cool. I wanted to get into, you know, what we got into what motivates you, you know, we got into your family. Like, what what goals are you trying to get to with this? Like, I heard you mention a little bit like a subscription type of thing, like adding some people. Tell us kind of where this is all headed. Like what your like your 2-year plan for helping people, if you have a goal, and how many people you want to help, like bringing that into light a little bit.
Yeah, so the goal is impact as much as possible, impact as many guys positively as possible. And my my time and my energy is limited with one-on-one. I absolutely love one-on-one, and I wouldn't want to go away from that. I love just, you know, chatting and really getting into things deeply. But, you know, over the years, I've proven that my methodology, I'm constantly learning and developing, you know, always investing in myself. And I've proven that what I do works. And it's not that I have to prove it anymore. I've already done that. So it's about, you know, putting it into another format for us to share. And at the moment, the vision is to have more of a membership community style. And we're going down that route. We're still putting the pieces together. So from the business point of view, that's the direction we want to go. I'd love to do retreats. That's on the cards as well, or more kind of speaking events. But from a point of view, I think it depends. I don't know. We'll see. But when it comes to a lot of the men retreats out there, they're very powerful, and it's a lot of, you may have seen on it, a lot of screaming and shouting, like letting out all the trauma. And I think that's great, and that will work for some. But I also think it will put some men off from saying, well, is that how it's done? No, I'm not that kind of guy. And they'll shift and they'll turn away. So I want to offer something slightly different. I'm not really a shouty, screamy kind of guy. It might be, I imagine it works brilliantly well, but I also want this, hey, but there are other ways to do it. So it's an avenue I want to go down with the business as well. You can have conversation. You don't have to shout and scream and get things out. You can do it in a slightly different way, which is calmer and more relaxed. But you can also do that as well. So I've got lots of visions for the business in many ways. And then from my point of view, with regards to financial independence, there's lots of things that have been ticking on my mind. Like I think we mentioned before, like stocks and shares, and cryptocurrency, still a bit nervous about that. I'm sure a lot of people are. Buying other businesses, and also property. I'd love to get into property. It's just understanding, or it's the risk factor for us at the moment.
Well, I'm kind of curious to hear your thoughts on buying private businesses, because I don't think we've spoken to many people who have engaged in that type of thing to pursue personal financial independence. But why don't you kind of walk us through your mindset with that and why that's an attractive route for you to kind of work on your finances in that way?
Yeah. So anyone that is listening to this that has started a business, run a business, knows that I think it's in the UK, I'm not sure if it's the same in the US, but within the amount of businesses that make it past 5 years is small, very, very small. So there's a lot of grit, a lot of hard work, it's really energy sapping at times. And if you don't have what you need in order to make it work, then often businesses won't survive. So for me, I'm all in. That's just the kind of character I am. But there are other ways to do it. So buying businesses with no money down. And it was something that I heard, I was like, what's this? That's not, you think I'm buying business, I'm going to need to raise like $1 million, or I'm going to need to raise 500,000, 250,000. But this is buying businesses with no money down and using a leveraged buyout. And essentially what that is that you are using other people's money to buy the business, and a large proportion of that from the seller. So the seller will finance you X amount of money, and then you can, depending on the amount, the kind of business you're buying, whether there's any assets within the business, you can leverage those and get some money from that to buy the business. And I thought, well, seller finance, why would anyone want to say, okay, I'll finance you and you can pay me monthly or quarterly or whatever? And what I read was that actually a lot of sellers within a business will like to do that because it's like another form of retirement fund. Essentially, every month or every quarter they get a nice payment for their business, and it adds on to their pension or whatever it is that they've got going on. So that really, really interests me. And it enables you to kind of look at businesses that are well established, that have been going maybe 10, 15 years. The owner is now ready for retirement or wants to sell because of ill health or has just had enough. And that means that also you can put your own little spin on it if you want to, and you can adapt the business, make a few changes here and there. You're often buying a business that's got the staff in place, so you don't need to think about that. And you can work above the business rather than in or on it. So when I heard that, I was like, wow, okay, this sounds interesting. So I'm gathering the information. I haven't quite made the power yet, but I've got the information. Knowledge is there.
So what kind of businesses are really interesting to you? So I'm sure you've been kind of exploring a whole bunch of different industries and opportunities where they might lie. What types of businesses have kind of piqued your interest?
So in the research that I've done, especially now, a lot of it is recession-proof businesses, naturally. So, for example, as my old job would say, the funeral directing world, in a sense, that's a recession-proof. And I know it doesn't sound very nice, but it is. You've got more like health and social care, those kind of industries, and also more like food industries as well. So because everyone needs food.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting strategy because you're already buying an existing business. They have they're hopefully a pillar of the community. They've engulfed or ingrained themselves in a local market. They have that sustainability, like you said, they've been around 10, 15, 20 years. Like you're coming in a little fresh swirl, but they already have built-in customer base, repeat customers, reputation, all of that. And people that are interested in real estate know about seller financing, and I think that's a great aspect of doing it. The same reasons that someone would seller finance real estate is why they would seller finance, owner finance their business. I have also been interested in that strategy. I have seen a gentleman he pops up on TikTok a lot, talking about how he buys businesses, for no money down or self funds the business. And that kind of got me a little interested in that. So I think that's a really, really great strategy. And this does go back because right now you're saying, competence is confidence. So it just sounds like you need to do a little bit more digging in on yourself about, buying the businesses, which is really interesting. And that kind of leads me into my next question was, what kind of obstacles do you see yourself facing, to hit that goal of, acquiring a business?
Yeah, I would say you probably hear this a lot, but time. For me, maybe if I'm coaching myself, maybe that's a little bit of an excuse, and it's a little bit of uncertainty. I'm like, okay, well, maybe I don't have enough information here yet. But I would say, the first thing that comes to mind is time. Like I say, being a family man, a young daughter, running a business, really trying to push the business forward, because I know that ultimately the business is going to allow me more cash, which is going to help me, make these decisions, whether it's property, stocks and shares, or buying businesses. So, but I would say time, because I'm starting to collate lists of businesses that I could reach out to based upon the age of the business, the turnover they've got, and whether or not it's an industry that I'd like. But look, that takes time. I think I heard someone say recently, you can buy like data lists of businesses. You can find out the information you need. So again, it's about looking into that, and then it's, do I send an email or a letter? But I've heard that letters are the best way forward. So you've got to write the letter, print the letter, send the letter. So it's all kind of time-consuming things. But something on the cards for me is outsourcing that. So having like a VA or a PA to do that kind of stuff. So yeah, I would say that time, but also probably I need to uncover a few little challenges there in my mind.
I like
That's super interesting.
So before we get into one of our final segments here, I'm kind of curious, because we mentioned it a few times. We haven't talked about it specifically, but Scott, I'm curious about, how this is set up for you personally. Talk about your family a little bit, and talk about, maybe your role as a husband and your role as a father, because I feel like with how intentional you are as a person, you probably have some really good perspectives on those roles as a man. So I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on either or both, father, husband.
Yeah, no, that's very kind. I'll take it as a compliment. So no, as a husband, like I say, I've been in May, we'll be married 10 years, and we've been together 15. So it's a really big milestone for us. We actually visited New York a couple of weeks ago for our 10-year wedding anniversary, which is cool. But with regards to relationship, it's been an ever evolving thing. So as a husband, for me, it's just about letting my ego just chill out, because a lot of the time it's the ego that takes over. It's like, hey, this is the problem here. You're attacking my ego, and my ego is loud, right? And if anyone is listening that wants to understand, what's my ego and what's not, is that your ego is bossy and it's loud and it's noisy. So if in your mind you're hearing this voice that's very bossy and loud, that's your ego, and often your ego is there to protect you from something that you don't really need protecting from. So just keep an eye out for that. So it's keeping my ego in check and listening. And there's also, there's a book, I can't remember the name of the book now, but I read it a good few years ago, and it's called The Male Brain, I think. And there's something in the male brain, and what we tend to do as males, and this is really helpful for relationships, is when our partner comes out, our wife, our partner, our girlfriend, comes home from a rough day and says, Julie at work was really rude to me. I didn't really like it. And what do us men tend to do? Why didn't you just do this? Next time, do this. And the woman goes, you never listen to me. Like, well, I am listening. I'm trying to give you a solution. But in our brain, it's designed to, when we have a problem, solution. We want to fix things straight away. But in the woman's mind, they don't want you to do that yet. Sit, listen, then fix it. And so I'm very conscious of doing that, and that really helps the relationship. And then with regards to being a dad, I'm really, really close to my daughter. I make a real conscious effort to understand her and give her everything she needs. And little things that she really likes. We might be walking to school and we play the I am game, and I'll say I am, and then she'll say, and then she'll copy me, and I'll say smelly, and she'll say smelly, but I always feel with like confidence. I am confident, I am incredible, I am extraordinary, I am amazing. And she repeats this, these little things that I can just see gradually building her confidence. And something that for me, and I know I'm talking a lot, but it's just something I'm passionate about. With kids,
keep going for sure.
cool.
Yeah, I love
So
this.
awesome. So, and with kids, I remember, and this is where words have power, and this is where awareness, and come back to that awareness, is so important, because, you know, as a kid, I was quite shy, but it wasn't necessarily shy at that time. It's just, you meet a stranger, you meet someone, and you don't necessarily want to run up to them, right? You don't know who they are. And then people around you say, oh, he's shy. He's just not very confident. And people's external words become your internal. So all of a sudden I started to believe I was shy and I wasn't very confident. And that stuck with me for my life, created the life I had, low confidence, anxiety. So what I will do is that, you know, often kids they have those shy moments, and my daughter might feel shy and people go, oh, she's quite shy. I'll be like, at the moment, like in this moment, she's feeling shy, but she is not shy. We can't label her as being a shy person, because I can tell you now she's not. But at the moment, it kind of adds this little bit of context to it, and she hears that and she understands that, and that's very powerful. You know, kids are a bit frustrating. Oh, you're being frustrating. At the moment, like, you aren't frustrating. It's cool. In this moment, it's a frustrating moment, and that really helps our relationship. And I'm hoping that's going to guide her to be a pretty awesome human being.
So one thing that I have kind of realized recently, becoming a father, my child's 8 months old, is, you know, as you mentioned before, becoming more aware. Because before, you know, I'm just going through life, just reacting to shit, you know, however I'll react to it, not really caring what I'm putting out to the universe. And it took, you know, even to this day, I'm not going to be perfect about this forever. And, you know, it's going to be a work in progress, but I still react to stuff. And while in the presence of my, you know, young child, and sometimes my wife has to remind me, like, listen, like, you've got somebody here that is picking up on your cues, just subconsciously, and we're shaping them. And this little person who's just taking in stimuli into their brain doesn't have a choice but to kind of react to what you're putting out there. So, you know, through her, and then just naturally the process of having a child, I've learned to try and act in a way that is more intentional with a child being around. I mean, it's like night and day. I mean, you know, I think every parent goes through this. They want better for their kid, and they want to be the best, hopefully, you know, ideally, people want to be the best person they can for their child. So that, you know, that's just kind of a little thing in my story, and kind of what I've experienced with being a recent father.
And look, just the awareness that you have is fantastic, genuinely. And I'm constantly trying to learn, you know, how to improve as a dad and as a parent. It's incredibly, what's that? My wife often says to me that, you know, children are your greatest teachers, because you learn so much about yourself, and they will trigger things within you that you didn't know were there. And that often comes from, and if anything, that should be like, you should thank them for allowing you to see that trigger, for that thing that's coming out of you. You want to be like, thank you for doing what you're doing, because it's allowing me to see where I need to do some work. And that's why I think you can apply that to anyone, not just children. Anyone out there that is triggering you, you need to thank them and say, great. And if you've got enough awareness and you're willing to take responsibility for your life, you can say, right, what am I going to do with this? Because it's not serving me. I need to shine a light and do something about it. And I just think children can really bring that out of you. Whether you are a parent or whether you kind of, you know, you're a teacher or look after kids, you will see that in some fashion, because they're just crazy times.
Man, I love all of this conversation. And you know, for you guys being together, you know, 15 years, married for 10. Danielle and I have been together 15 years, married for 8. And what you were saying there, it hit home. And recently, I'd say within like the last year at least, I have started to ask Danielle, my wife, when she starts to talk, I always ask her, are you looking for me to listen, or are you looking for me to, you know, provide a solution to the problem? And then she'll tell me, and then that's how I'll go about it. It like within like the first couple minutes of the conversation, because I'll start thinking and I'm like, hey, time out, you know, do you want me to just listen, or are you asking me to listen to provide a solution? And I just make sure to say that, so I'm aware of what she wants, and then she knows that I'm aware that I do that sometimes, and that I've heard you, and now I'm hearing you. And it's just one of those little things that I've started to do over the last, year plus, that I think has helped like our relationship uh grow a lot better, just showing that I'm aware of what she wants.
That's so powerful. That's such a good way. I haven't heard of that way of doing it. That's a great way. It's just totally being open and vulnerable with it. And I've heard, I think it's Brene Brown. If you haven't looked at Brene Brown, you've probably heard of her. She talks about courage and vulnerability and how it's very, very closely linked. And she likes to encourage couples to lead with, if they're making up a story, because we all make up stories, and leading to a conversation, if you feel like there's conflict, is like, the story that I'm making up is that you don't love me anymore. And then what that does, it's not saying you don't love me anymore. It's the story that I'm making up is that we're not going on the right path. It's not accusing. It's the story that I'm making up is that. So it gives the other person this kind of, you're not pointing the finger, you're giving them this is how I am feeling at this moment in time, without pointing, which I think is great.
Exactly. Well, I think this is a perfect segue into our last segment of the show that we call the Big Four. James, take it away. My man's on mute, baby.
Mute, man, gets me every time. I got my dang dog barking, so I'm always trying to, mute him. So I'm muting myself by accident. Anyways, we keep these bloopers in for your guys' entertainment. So, exactly. Scott, I want you to tell us something that you do that feels like a financial independence cheat code, something like a hack that you kind of do on a day-to-day basis, maybe just something that is a pattern that you do to help you with your personal finances.
Yeah, typically with me, it's all about mindset and the way I feel, and so for me, it's all about protecting my energy, because if I feel good in myself, then I'm more likely to do what I need to do to create that financial independence and that wealth. So being around, avoiding the fear in the news. For example, spending less time with people that drain me with energy, spending less time in places that drain me of energy, and doing more of what fills me with energy, because then I'm ready to go. Like stuff like this. I'm meant to be going to bed after this. I'm not sure about that. I've got too much energy running through me. So protecting my energy.
What a great answer. I really want to make sure that I put that out there. What a great answer. That is the first time that the energy has been said as a hack for themselves. And I really respect that, because I feel the same way. And I think sometimes people don't give themselves the ability to really feel powerful about their own energy, if that makes sense. Like, sometimes it's okay to like not go see that person, or not, or tell, or like consciously push some people out of your life, or know going into it that I'm not going to give them all of me, because I'm not getting it back, whether it's with financial independence or how you're thinking about your thoughts. But I really love that answer, because I think your energy is really important, and conserving it for the right reasons makes a lot of sense. So I love that answer. And with that being said, we call this next one resources. So I'm sure you're going to have some good ones. Are there any particular books, podcasts, or people that have overall just shaped your life, your journey, that you feel like our listeners could benefit from? Doesn't have to be financial related, just overall things that have affected you, that you feel like our listeners could benefit from.
Yeah, so if we were talking about a book, no, I won't say that one.
No, it doesn't have to be finance related, like self-help related, something that just made, personally for me, something that's made an impact on your life that you feel like men out there, our listeners out there, could benefit from. A person to follow on Instagram, a podcast that makes a big impact to you, a book that you've read that you feel like our listeners might not have come across that might benefit them? Doesn't have to be finance related.
Cool. Yeah. So finance book, I've got one to mind, and that would be Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. It was really quite profound for me. I found a lot out about the mind and how it relates to finances. So I definitely recommend a read of that. It's quite hard going though. It's like written in 19 something or other, so you have to read the lines a few times, but it's definitely worth a read. For me, there's a book by, you may have heard of him, it's Dr. Joe Dispenza, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And it's fantastic. It's quite spiritual in many ways, but it's backed up by neuroscience. And for someone like me, I love the science of things. It goes back to my personal training days, physiology and all of that kind of stuff. So, but he kind of links the both of like neuroscience and also how it relates to attracting the things that you want in your life, and that comes down to energy and frequency. And just on that, what you might find it quite powerful talking about energy is that if anyone can go away and just start to really work on their thoughts, they will change their life. It's simple. It's not necessarily easy, but it is as simple as that. And think of it from an energy point of view. So our thoughts or the words that we use in our mind or externally, they are a sound. A sound is a vibration. A vibration is a frequency, and frequency is energy. And the world is made up of energy. So really kind of think of it like that. Everything you want is there. We know financial independence is there, money's there, houses are there, everything is there for you. It's just we need to be on the right kind of frequency. So think of a radio station. You're listening to R&B. You don't want to listen to R&B, but you want to listen to rock, and you know it's there. You just can't hear it because the frequency you're on is R&B. But as soon as you change that frequency, boom, you can hear the rock music that you want. It's the same for anything we want in life. And it's just about, it's a nicer way of living, whether you want to believe in that or not, of putting yourself on that frequency and in that energy by thought alone. So practice, not necessarily easy, but simple. Yeah.
I love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. James, number 3.
We're going to go to point B because I had a recommendation that I wanted to share for Scott for reading, because, I don't share this book with a lot of people because I don't think they're in the right mindset to really accept it and like it. You might have read it. You might not have heard of it. I don't know, but I'm just going to put it out there. It's called Getting Naked by Patrick Lencioni. And the subtitle is A Business Fable About Shedding 3 Fears That Sabotage Client Loyalty. And, throughout our conversation, we've talked about becoming vulnerable and, peeling back some of those layers. And that book is a great, fantastic book that I just wanted to recommend to you directly to maybe take a look at, because not only does it help, I think, your relationship with clients, but just people and relating to people, kind of like How to Win Friends and Influence People might own it to some degree. But it's a great fictional fable that kind of walks you through some tactics and strategy to become vulnerable and connect. So just wanted to plug that book for you right there.
Love that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll send you a link to it. So next question. This one's a future you. I want you to paint for us Scott's future life in 5 years. Like where is Scott 5 years from now, either with the coaching business, or you can do it with your family and kids. Where is your life 5 years from now?
So I would say what I really, really would like is to be involved. I want this business to be thriving. It will be, but having this business in that space where I still work in it and on it, but more above it. So I have, more opportunity to do other things like buying businesses and maybe look into property. I'd like to have my fingers in a few different pies, but from an above point of view, rather than being so involved in it and taking all of my time and energy, so that I can naturally spend more time with my family and my daughter specifically and my wife specifically. So it's about that for me. My wife and I and my daughter, we went to Bali in Asia for 4 months. I was able to work there for 4 months, and we lived there. It was a big move for us. We just thought, let's just do it and see what the life is like. It was a real experience for us, but it gave us that taste of freedom of, okay, well, we can do whatever we want here. Let's get more of this. So freedom and having my time and energy and spending it with my family, and also obviously financial independence is the key for me. So that's where I see the next 5 years.
Love it.
Fantastic. Scott, for all of our listeners out there that want to reach out, that want to connect with you, that want to follow what you're doing, where is the best place for them to reach out to find you, to connect?
Cool. A couple of places you can go to. If you're interested in coaching or anything, then you can feel free to come to my website. It's further-coaching.com. And then I'm really trying to really do more social media to have more of an impact and just share more of my story and of things that you can do to help yourself. So check out my Instagram, which is Scott D Hardiman, and I've also got LinkedIn, and there's a lot of stuff I do there on as well, which is Scott Hardiman. So and come and follow me on there. Say hello, because there's lots of things, exciting things that are going to happen, and I'd love to connect. Yeah.
Love it. All right, guys, you guys know the drill. This podcast is not free. We provide you with free information, but all we ask is for you to give back one way, which is by liking this video, leaving us a review, signing up and subscribing to our newsletter. Just do one of those things for us. James and I try to put out amazing content for you guys each and every week, bring amazing guests. Hey, send us a DM, recommend someone that you think would have an impact with our listeners, and be a part of the community that we're trying to grow. And with that being said, we'll catch you guys next time. Peace.
See you guys.